Hi everyone. On episode 11 of Masters of the Deal, we're talking to Amrish Shah, M&A tax partner at Deloitte. Amrish has an incredible 37 years of experience, including leadership roles at 3 of the Big Four, and he's been involved in some major deals. Quick heads up, we had some technical problems, so you might see my background change, but it's a great conversation. Thanks for your patience on this. Let's get into it. Amrish is a partner in Deloitte, India's tax practice, specializing in M&A tax and regulatory structuring. With over 30 years of experience, he's advised both multinational and Indian companies on high stakes acquisitions, divestments, and complex corporate reorganizations. He's also a trusted advisor to private equity firms, supporting them through tax due diligence, investment structuring, and exit strategies across domestic and cross border transactions. From telecom and infrastructure to financial services, healthcare, logistics, and manufacturing, Amrish has seen deal making across virtually every major sector. Amrish, I'm thrilled to have you on the podcast. Welcome to Masters of the Deal.
Thank you, Harsh. Thank you for your kind words.
So let's start right at the beginning. Where are you from?
Primarily Bombay, though roots are in Gujarat, and the famous temple which was raided 17 times by Muhammad Ghazni. So, Somnath temple, that's where the ancestors used to be. But I've
Okay.
been brought up and born and brought up in Bombay.
Okay. So you're a Bombay boy from the start.
Yeah, 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 yes, completely a Mumbai boy,
So I see you speak
including
Marathi.
including supporting the local teams in cricket.
So you're a Mumbai Indians fan.
Yeah, yeah. Mumbai Indians, Bombay in the Ranji Trophy, whatever you want to call it.
So a big cricket buff. Have you played cricket while you were growing up in Mumbai in the Maidans where Sachin Tendulkar is famously known to have learned his cricket?
Yeah, so I've played in the Maidans, and my maybe generation when I used to play used to be more the Gavaskars, Vengsarkars, the Karsan Gauris, Sandeep Patil era, Ravi Shastri. I've seen Ravi Shastri hit his six sixes in a Ranji match.
Oh
I've seen
wow,
Tendulkar hit his first Ranji Trophy century. Uh,
wow!
so
So you're
so
you're
so
a big
that's
cricket fan. You're not a little
yeah,
cricket
yeah,
fan. You're a
yeah.
big cricket fan.
I play now also. We have a yearly M&A tax team competition in
Uh-huh.
Bombay. But now it's box cricket at my age. That's easier for me.
Also, there's so
But
little
I've played a
space.
lot of corporate cricket. I've played a lot of corporate cricket also.
So I used to. I mean, I was a professional. Went to play in England as a cricketer when I
Wow.
was 17, and I had seniors like Gautam Gambhir and that group, and some of my guys ended up, junior guys ended up playing at the IPL. That was I think I left when there was no IPL and there was no,
Mm.
at least there was no hope of making money and a career because it was so competitive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still play corporate cricket. If you ever come down to Delhi, happy to take you for a game. The level here is,
Sure.
so we play in the Delhi Daredevils home ground usually. So sometimes I get
Wow.
to face some really fast bowlers, and I'm also getting older, so I haven't played for a while. But enjoy it. Cricket's amazing.
Yeah, I think the professional career, has its own path. For me, it's been an interesting journey. I played regularly till I was 25.
Uh
Then
huh.
there was a thorough because CA, and then you want to do best in your career. So, you're focusing on career. And
Yeah.
then suddenly, when my son was born in 98, and I think it was about three and a half or just about that, 2002, 2003,
Uh
there
huh.
was a corporate tournament and I had to miss it because I had some client meeting on a Saturday, right? And I said I'll miss it. But somehow, my son reached this thing because of some communication gap and he started playing cricket there. I mean, in his own way at three and a half.
Uh huh.
And then they realized, and then I came later to pick him up. And then they realized that the best way to get me onto the field is to tell my son that there is a match on this Saturday at so and so time. And that's how I used to be on the field.
Did your
The
son end
best
up?
part is, Yeah, he's not end up playing ultimately, but and he opened in a innings, which is, and when he told me you'll get out first, then I will, and that actually happened, you know. So those are
It's a,
the sweet
it's
memories.
it's it's a great sport. My only complaint is that even if I'm playing a T20, it takes a whole day, right? Because you got
Yeah,
to go in the morning, come back, and I just had a kid, so now I'm just finding it harder to find time.
yeah.
But we'll stay. So tell me about the Marathi. The
I
Marathi
tell you
obviously comes from.
the one thing you can do is when he's three and a half, or she's three and a half, get
Yeah,
them hooked to it, and you will play again.
and then I'm like, no, no, I'm not gonna give it up. I'm still gonna play, but find
Yeah.
time at Wednesday night games and
No,
whatnot.
you can play with them, along with them, take them to your 320 matches, let them enjoy the, sit outs, while you are
Yes,
playing. And then, when you are not batting and, you are there, then you can play with them. So that's how
that's
I've
how
done
they get.
it.
That's a great idea. So tell me about the Marathi and the Gujarati. You Marathi obviously because you're born and brought up in Mumbai. The Gujarati comes from the family. Are they originally from Gujarat?
Yes, I think it's the mother language. So the mother tongue in that sense. So that comes naturally to us, from that perspective, because relatives, family, most of them talk in Gujarati. So you pick up.
Mm-hmm.
I can't write Gujarati. Now I can't write even Hindi or Marathi. It's been, like difficult if I have to write something there. But I
Mm-hmm.
will try and, read Hindi and, Gujarati quite a bit. Marathi is because in Mumbai you need Marathi. If you want to park your car, you just tell the cop in Marathi. He'll allow you to park for that 5 minutes. If you're going
Yeah.
to buy something or anything, or if you just cross the line, or just at the this thing, and you talk to somebody in Marathi, it just helps, wherever you go, whether it's a parking lot, the guy you talk there, they take care
Yeah.
of your car better if you speak in Marathi.
Yeah.
That's
Because they
what
see
I've
you as
realized.
that's
Yeah,
because they see you as a local, right?
yeah.
So how was it growing up in Mumbai in those days? Did your parents have a big influence on you? What you studied? What you ended up doing as you were growing up?
So I think, frankly speaking, we had a free hand. Though I think mom used to take care of the studies. She was a science student herself, quite good in her studies. Dad has not been a good student in that sense, not even wanting to study further. But he had only one thing in mind: I don't like studies, but you all need to study. So all the siblings, had to study beyond the BCom, I mean, or the BSc, or whatever you want to call it. So beyond the bachelor degree, you need to study. I think when I was in ninth, 10th, maths attracted me, in its own way. And when I moved to 11th, I thought commerce is my calling. And then accounts just came like this to me.
So if you look at accounting, the language of business, the debit and credit and the accrual basis, you like the uh, I mean, I wouldn't say the perfection of it. I enjoyed accounting, studying finance as well, but the fact that there had to be a debit if there's a credit and so on, and the dual nature of accounting, and I used to hate it when it wouldn't reconcile, and you'd then go hunting to find out where the mistake was made. So that attracted you, it seems.
Yeah, I think the whole thing about it, right? That ultimately, whatever you do in your operations, I think if it is not reflected in your balance sheet or your P&L, beyond a
Mhm.
point, it has no meaning, right?
Correct.
So the bottom line is as important as the top line. I mean, that's the key learning I've had, when I've been looking at, the accounting. And, obviously, as you said, there have been difficult times when things don't tally, and, something is amiss, right? And, you go through the grind, but
But is the fun in the forensic bit of it? Because I know there's a whole forensic accounting department usually trying to find out you know, uh, where the shenanigans have happened. Uh, I, I'm sure after doing it for 30 years, I'd assume just like a Buffett, you'd look at a financial statement and you can immediately see. what to look at, number one, and go into the fine print and try to dig up, okay, does this make sense, are they hiding something, etc., etc. So am I right to say that after so long, like you've just you kind of know?
I think, yeah, you get a sort of a sixth sense feel, if I can put it this way.
Yeah.
Do I need to look at this area, or maybe I look at that area? There will always be one or two or three areas where you want to quickly have a reconfirmation, recheck, you know, and maybe dig deep a little. I think that's always
Hmm.
going to be the case.
And why tax? You said tax attracted you.
I mean, as I was saying, tax, because it is 37th year of my tax calling, if I can put it this way.
Hmm.
Uh, what was good for me is that the firm that I, got my internship done, I had a lucky break and I got to do, corporate restructuring exercise in my first 6 months of my internship. Very hard.
Hmm.
And suddenly, tax attracted me because it was not only tax, because that entire restructuring was based on what was the corporate law requirement, what was the stamp duty requirement, what was the commercial objectives that the parties wanted to achieve, right? And obviously tax. Uh, so I thought, this is a little more all round comparatively,
Hmm.
compared to just being in a just a tax, and you give a view on a tax point of, that comes up before you.
Hmm.
And that's, I think, what attracted me to the M&A side of tax, in a much more uh, interesting thing in the initial phases, right? And then obviously one by one it led to things. And then, I know 92 SEBI came in, which is, your SEC equivalent. And
Hmm.
that, attracted me even more towards M&A, because initially it was, the takeover code and, those type of issues, very new for India. So you try to deep dive into it, you start, answering questions that you get, and you become even better in that. So that's, I think, the way the journey has been.
If someone has to look at a career based on their accounting skill sets and degrees, what are the different doors that they can enter?
So I think obviously the first foremost that people may want to look at is, doing a bit of auditing. Because audit gives you business perspective. It allows you, to understand how a business functions, how the operations are carried on. That's one field that one can definitely get into. The second, obviously, is around tax. And within tax, there are different domains now. You start with a corporate tax, you can start with an individual tax, you can go to indirect tax, you can go to transfer pricing, M&A tax. So I think there are again different domains within tax. I mean, in my days, there was only tax and indirect tax. I mean, there were just two bifurcations, primarily. But now I think
Hmm.
there are further specializations that have emerged. Uh, Thereafter, I think there's this entire space around valuations, right, that one can get into. Forensic, which you mentioned some time back, I think is another growing area. Now I see people go even from cyber security related stuff, but they might have to add on some skills, beyond their CA skills. But I think that inherent skill of the CA is still very much, essential. The fourth, which I would think is internal audit, that one can think of, which is reviewing of systems and, processes that are laid out for any
Hmm.
function. So I think, people can keep on. Now I think there are multiple choices that one has. I think the only thing I would advise anybody who's going in is figure out what you like to do easily, right? Am I good at forensic easily? Then I should, try and do a career in forensic. Am I good in auditing? Is it coming naturally to me? Then do that, because it won't take a lot of effort for you then to, enhance your skill sets, and in your experiences will always help you. But it will come more naturally than, you wanting to put an effort to be remaining in that sphere. And
Hmm.
in a long career, let's say everybody works between 35 to 40 years, I mean, more or less, right?
Hmm.
I think it is important that you play to your strength, and therefore whatever comes natural to you is, I mean, I've had friends calling, my son wants to do CA, why don't you take in an M&A tax, it is much more, glorified, let me put it this way, right?
Hmm.
So I always call them for a meeting. I ask the kid, what is it that you want to do? Because I can
Mm.
tell you anything about M&A tax, but it should
Sure.
interest you. And then I've seen
Exactly.
people say, no, I feel, internal audit is good for me. I feel, audit is good for me. I feel corporate tax is good for me. I like that subject. And then, they go back and then my friends go, "Arey, you dissuaded him from M&A tax." But I said, what I've done is I've told him to do what he likes.
Mm.
That's very important. So I always believe that it's easy for a person to do things that they like.
I mean, we all have an inclination and inherent strengths, things that we do which gives us energy versus takes away energy from us. And I
Absolutely.
think so if you know what that is, and you just get pulled towards it like a magnet, then you excel versus it feeling like a drag,
Yeah.
right? Because if you don't
Yeah,
enjoy it, you're always competing with someone who does enjoy it, and you cannot compete because for them it might be fun and a
absolutely.
game, but for you it's work. And so if someone is ready to put in 12 hours, 16 hours because they're so into it, versus you are waiting for the clock to turn 5, there's no way you'll succeed.
Absolutely. And you do it with, inherent passion, right? A thing
Correct.
that you like, right? And that just will come to you naturally then. And
Yeah.
I've always remembered this, Harsh, because when I used to talk to the kids, I've used that as my, basis without telling them the story. You know, that
That
do what you like.
so the beginning of your career, right? You got very lucky with your internship. Who was your first internship with?
So it was with the famous chartered accountant in Mumbai, Mr. Bansi S. Mehta, very well
Mm-hmm.
known, well regarded, a gold medalist,
Mm-hmm.
both inter and final. Uh, one of the most well known chartered accountants in the country also.
And then you switched to I think one of the three big four, which was PwC. Was it the first?
Yeah, no. So before that, I moved to Anderson's for a very short time.
Mm-hmm.
But then another boutique firm was getting created in Mumbai called Ambit RSM, which was, again, a mix of big four and, good Indian boutique firms. And then, this firm merged into PwC. So we all became part of PwC because we realized that just remaining a domestic firm, we will have only as much opportunities because now India was becoming truly international.
So you were actually 37 years ago at the inception of M&A tax in India because it didn't exist. And what you're telling me is that your firm got acquired by PwC because once you started and your local firm started, that's when the big four and the international guys came into India realizing the potential. Am I correct to say that?
So I'll put it slightly differently. They had come in a little earlier, but more focused on the audit side of things. I think they started focusing on tax as a part of, obviously giving audit services, and then, you start doing one after the other. But I think maybe 10 years, when the transaction happens, or maybe 12 years is when they would have started their tax practice. And I think what happened was, we all know that Anderson went down the drain because of Enron. It created its own level of flutters in the big four because obviously, you need to look at every aspect of it. And it took a little time for them to come out of it. And then, there was the Sarbanes-Oxley, where, audit and non-audit services had to be, clearly differentiated. So all of that, took its whatever 3, 4 years, 5 years to settle down the dust. And then I think as more transactions happen, I think firms realize that if they get boutique firms with them, where maybe the technical strength on the domestic side is very high, and for the boutique firms, where international opportunities will increase. I think that is how the actual complementary skill sets came into play.
So you work for PwC, then EY. Now, you're a partner with Deloitte. You're a partner with EY as well. I mean, so I mean, you've basically been at the top of three of the four big fours. Almost equal, right? I mean, 5 years, almost 8 years now on the ninth year. Uh, do you want to end with the KPMG another 10 years?
Uh, no, I think, see, the issue is, I mean, I've been in four, as I said, I was a short time in Anderson also.
And
I think,
Anderson.
yeah, yeah. So I think, it's also that I'm now on the wrong side of the age from an overall perspective, just to be on the lighter side of things. But I think, to be more serious, I think it's all depends on, how you feel about a firm at a given point of time, right? And if things are going all right, then you just carry on without thinking anything beyond that. And I think that's something that has happened over the years. So it's not like I've had a year stint or 2 year stints and I've moved out. I've enjoyed my stints with each firm. Each one has taught me very differently, and I still date tell my colleagues in my office, my team members who are younger, that somehow God has been kind. My first boss was a super technical person but solution oriented. I had four bosses in RSM, Ambit RSM, each one
Mhm.
very different. Each one very different. Uh, and then I moved to PwC, and I moved to PwC before the RSM merger. So I was 18 months ahead of the rest of the team, my colleagues coming in. I had a boss who was good in terms of how to, do things in a very process manner. So, I've synthesized from a technical solution oriented boss to a set of four bosses where how do you maintain relationships? How do you give service and be called for, so I in different skill sets of each of the six bosses. And I always tell my team that you need to work with more than one boss, because the pluses and the minuses every person has. So long
Mhm.
as you can know the pluses and try to inculcate them in your way of working, and also stay away from the minuses that any boss carries or any person carries. I think that interestingly gives you a more vibrant way of looking at things, and your style also becomes in a way your own style, when you have little that you learned over the period from everybody. Plus, what is a no is a no. Even if for that person it is not a no, for you it is a no, because you don't feel that is the right way to do things, right? So I think it's for me, I will always call myself an amalgam of six bosses, or ways of working of six bosses, and then that's what I've tried to, over a period, try and imbibe as much as possible. I recollect, and I'm sharing this, my first 360-degree feedback, when this was not known in that those years, was, I think, the year 2002, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe one, right?
Mhm.
And when I got that report, I didn't know that I'm such a person. I mean, that was all perception of people, right, around you. And I decided that the next time a similar report comes, it has to change drastically. And actually, in 18 months, the next report was quite different. So I think it is you as an individual, and I don't call any evaluation as a feedback. I call it feed forward, because feedback is, you will go backwards, but if you want to take that feed and move forward, then you need to work on what is written there in terms of your areas that you need to work on. So I always call it feed forward rather than feedback.
How interesting. So, I mean, I share the view that any change in leadership at the top leads to a change in culture below, right? Because the leader brings their own flair, their own way of thinking, their own people, their own changes in processes. And by its nature, a change disrupts. So I'm sure over six bosses, you must have experienced a lot of disruption because everyone's style is different. And I mean, I definitely experienced it. unlike you, so I think one of the blessings of being in a field for so long, like 37 years, it's a lifetime, is that you become a master in the field, because there's no way that you cannot see the industry shape up and grow as you have. Me, for a much smaller portion, I mean, I've been doing, you know, leading virtual data rooms and building a business, and then it got sold, and now I'm building another business. But being in this space for 18 years is something I could never have predicted. I mean, as a
Yeah.
24-year-old entering the field, you think you just do the best work and grow. But the bosses did make a difference in terms of, the first boss trusts you and sees your potential. That in itself is a gift, because
Yes.
I've also heard about bosses, exceptional talent, who are totally ignored by the leadership because of preference or bias. And I feel like everyone holds some bias, but as you go up, your ability to see people for what they're capable of is a superpower. And if you can really
Abs-
see, what is in front of you, and give them the runway to actually achieve what they're capable of, you win. Because you can only win if the people under you, the business is a team sport, wins. So my experience over the last 20 years of doing what I have has totally been that. And recently also with the acquisition and changes, it was stressful. I mean, because it was change, and I had to change the story in my mind to saying, oh shit, to what an opportunity, right? And once that switch happens, then you start looking at things from a different lens and doing the best you can. And I'm actually very grateful for the disruption, because I feel like it makes you, it stops the plateau and then starts the next level of growth, because it's so easy to become comfortable at where you are. So I see that you've kind of moved around, and it must be great to experience three different cultures, three different ways of working, different teams, etc. My wife recently, I mean, we are in India. We've traveled around quite a bit, and I told her, I said, look, we're too comfortable here. Like, I would want to move just because it's too comfortable, like we are in a bubble. And just so that it forces us to look at life differently, let's also push ourselves to live differently, otherwise we will not grow. At your position, in a leadership position, it becomes more about business development, getting clients, building those relationships, and less about actually practicing the art which got you there. And this is an issue that a lot of companies have faced, as they've promoted people who've never been in a CEO position, for instance, right? Because they came from an operation line or a sales line, but they were not at a point where they're deciding on M&A, which is why investment bankers get hired, etc. um, but you've stuck to the same line for so long, and now you're at the top of it. Do you lose touch, number one, from the actual practice, because so much of your work is client work now? First question. Does that uh, impact your ability to spot what actually got you there? I don't know if I framed the question correctly.
Yeah. No, Harsh, I think it's a interesting one. The good thing about tax is it keeps you on your toes. Let me tell you that. All right. I mean, we having a new act come from April 1, 26 into play. I've in my lifetime seen a new companies act come into play. And I think for us, while we need to do sales, I mean, there's no two doubts about it. And that's what something that we like to do. But we can't do sales unless we have, the technical prowess that we need, because a client will figure you out, you know, uh, very quickly, right? If you are not giving them a solution for their commercial objectives to be met. So when we do sales, or when I go to meet clients, or when I do, we do talk about situations. We do tell them this is what our view is. And when every day I have client calls, which is on the engagement itself, even though there is a team helping. So it's not like, it's not like a tool sale that you do the sale of the tool and then you are gone and then you do the next sale of the tool, right? We are still in the advisory business. Unless we are able to provide that, experience sharing, what you want to call it, or solution to a critical problem that the client may be facing, the client aren't remembering you for long. So I've been again, as I said, my first boss was always, solution orientation. I think that's been remaining with me. And I have clients who have worked with me in at least four of my five stints that I've had in different heads. So I think I, in fact, love when I'm in a client meeting. I feel it brings more sanity to me, because it's again, the same thing that I said, right? If you, it's your calling, it comes to you naturally, it comes to you easily. You do it with passion, and then you feel, really, aaj kuch kiya. Today
Mm.
you've done something for the client, or you got him a solution. I'll tell you, this is again going back almost 24, 25 years back. Uh, we did a solution called capital realignment or capital restructuring for a client. And when, a very big industrialist who's no more with us asked us two or three questions. Is it within law? We said, yes, sir, it is within law. Am I, as a promoter or an industrial group, benefiting more than my, retail shareholders? We said, sir, no, everybody is equally benefiting. So I'm not saying you are not benefiting, but they are also equally benefiting, right?
Mm.
And how much time will it take if I need to do, and what will I achieve? I said, sir, I mean, and as a team, I was a younger member of that team, but you learn from your seniors. We say, sir, you are not able to pay dividends to your shareholders. Do you want to pay dividend to your shareholder? This will allow you to do that. And I can tell you that same solution we carpet bombed in India. Okay. And I would have, in those times, myself, having started the first one, as a team member, would have done more than 20,000 crores of capital restructuring. I mean, in 2002, 3, 4, I'm talking of, okay, that era. And I'll use numbers for those times. So
Yeah,
I
20,000
think
crores are huge numbers for today.
so I'm saying that, when you, I kept a log of it, because I was very keen. Hey, what a solution this is. I mean, this has been the best solution in my 37 years, if I can put it, in terms of its impact, if I were to call it. And yes, it was doable, though there were some accounting chinks around it, but we figured out,
But did that
you know
stop because the law changed or because everyone started doing it?
So
What
what
happened?
happened is, yeah. So I think it's now become a sort of a bread and butter, and it's being used, occasionally, right? But at that time, it was a big thing, and I think if you see, it was also like because there were a lot of capital projects which were initiated, and some of them did not do well. So you had a
Mhm.
lot of accumulated, business sense losses, and you do a capital restructuring and get that loss off your balance sheet so that you're back in the green.
You talked about P&L and balance sheet. Unless you also look at the cash flow statement, you cannot really get the true picture of what's going on in the business. Because, I mean, for instance, when I look at the stuff that I'm doing as a business, right, or where I'm the entrepreneur, I'm looking at the P&L balance. I actually maintain accounts on a much smaller scale on a cash basis because
Yes,
that's the
yes.
oxygen of the business, and that gives you the true picture of what's really going on. And then, of course, my CA comes in to uh, uh, optimize the tax and make sure that things are right. Um, how interesting. But is there any standout deal? I mean, are there any? I mean, you've probably worked with. You mentioned Anand Mahindra. You've mentioned the fact that clients have moved with you, and I'm assuming that's one of the strongest testament to the relationship that you build, because in any field, especially in banking, including tax, I'm assuming that uh, you know it's you who got attached not only personally but also professionally, and it's you who stayed with that particular company throughout the life and the journey of the company, right? So they move with you because they trust you, and they trust the kind of stuff and work that you've done, and they can see the passion, etc. Any standout deals that you can actually share, which
I mean, there'll be lots of them. Frankly, there'll
just
be
name
lots
a
of
few.
them. I was involved in the JLR acquisition. I was involved in the reorganization of the Tech Mahindra Satyam deal, which was in its own way a very different deal. I've done all many of the geo deals and the retail deals that happened in 2020. I know that
Mhm.
was a time, we've just entered into COVID, and by the end of that year or just before the end of that year, I think India's biggest industrial group had raised $20 billion of money, uh, and we were in the forefront of it. So out of the 11 deals as a team, we did five in Deloitte. Out of the 11, geo deals, and then we did, three out of the seven in the retail side. So I think, that's something that stands out because it was COVID. We were trying to figure out how to do work sitting at home, so all those challenges, and then to do such huge deals for your clients and help them invest in one of the largest industrial groups in India. I think that was amazing phase. I mean, it was just everything was new. I mean, we used to, if you have to read a SPA or a share purchase agreement, right? You would take a copy, mark your comments, have discussions with the guy. Here, everything had to be online because no way you could take a copy. Offices were closed. I think it was amazing in different ways, right? So those stand out, quite a bit. But if you look at uh, in terms of the creativity and all, I've had situations where somebody want to do a share purchase, and I've gone back and said, why don't you look at an asset purchase rather than a share purchase, right? And we've gone and flipped the deals. And the one thing that I've learned over the years is when you are advising a buyer, also factor in what the seller's thought process would be.
Mhm.
Okay, or if you're advising the seller, just think of what the buyer's thought process would be. It helps you and helps your clients to think through in advance how to prepare themselves, because they know that if they raise A, the counter is going to raise. So I've had sessions where I act as, if I'm an advisor of an acquirer, I act as a seller, and I said, but what about this? Let's think about it like this. Then I again come back to my, buyer side advisor hat and say, for this answer, can we give this answer, or you want to tweak it? And when I said that we moved from a share purchase to an asset purchase, it was a win-win both for the buyer and seller.
I
Okay,
was just going to
we were
ask
able
you.
to.
Yeah. I mean, are you always looking for a win-win? Because first question, how often is it that the party that you're representing is trying to max their own benefit versus actually giving up some to say, no, everyone should win, right? Because you always come into deals where y y the founder or the shareholders want to squeeze out the most of the deal. That's the point of, multiple parties coming in and M&A, and the highest bid wins usually. Is that the
Yeah,
norm 80% of the time?
yeah, I would think that is the norm, right? It's only when you get into an exclusive situations is where you can experiment a little more. But in a bid situation, you have to play by the norm. There is no two doubts about it. And
Mm.
you're right. Any acquirer will look at what's best for him.
Mm-hmm.
But if in the example that I was giving on the SPA versus asset, if you can make them see reason that over the next 3 years you are better with an asset, even if you give up something more
Mm.
versus a share purchase, that's what I call the win-win. So I'll give you, maybe, so if I do an asset purchase, you can amortize the cost of the assets because they are a part of your business and operations. If I
Mm.
do a share purchase, there is no amortization. It sits as a cost of investment in my books. And
Sure.
when I'm able to claim an amortization tax break,
Mm.
right, it might be beneficial for the buyer. Who
Sure.
knows? We don't
Oh,
know that,
interesting.
right? Yeah.
Again,
So,
that's the
so
tax angle, right? Because you're looking at it from a very tax point of view. So if you're depreciating the asset over, I don't know how many years, 5 years, 10
see
years,
what
whatever.
happens is, yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. So that you hit it on hit it the nail on the the thing. But I think the important thing is I've seen obviously when you are, let's say, in a finance field, obviously you are not also equally. knowing about the tax advantages or benefits that one can take. This is where that amalgam with us works the best,
Mm.
because we understand what they want to achieve from a financial objective perspective when they're looking at a target. And then if
Mm-hmm.
I can marry the two, I'll give you another example. If you want to buy a land, right, there are two ways to buy the land. Especially if it is in a special purpose vehicle, right? You buy the land and you pay a huge stamp duty, 6%. Why
Mm.
don't I buy the shares? I
Mm.
pay
And just transfer the
0.15%.
ownership.
Yeah,
How much is it?
0.15%.
0.15. Okay.
0.15. Now, in Bombay, from a 6%, if you drop down to 0.15, isn't this an advantage?
Huge advantage. I mean, you're talking
Right?
about
And then,
millions.
right. And then, if it has become my 100% subsidiary, I just merge that company back into my company in Bombay, and there is zero stamp duty on that merger. So I've
But tell
acquired the land.
Mm. But tell me something that makes me ask. This is, you're talking from a corporate level, even at a private level. For instance, inheritance, right? If you're looking at passing on your land, I'm talking about India, or your assets to your kids, would it make more sense to incorporate a company, pass the land on to the company, and then transfer the ownership in terms of the equity to your kids instead of having to pay any inheritance? Does it work that way or no? I mean, I don't know what the laws are, but
Yeah, no. So it's a interesting one. I think uh, there are two ways that one would pass the land, right? On a calamity happening or an event of death happening, because then there
Mhm.
is no stamp duty.
Okay, there is it.
Or yeah,
Mhm.
when it happens as a result of that. So what we've seen is that whenever it is immovable property, people
Mm.
try and do it, at the event.
Mm.
Whereas everything else is, planned in a manner that, it can go before, or, whenever those milestones are done. As see, again, each family, I've done several family planning and all of that.
Mhm.
Because my first boss used to be, very well regarded in on that front. Uh, uh, and every family is nuanced in terms
Mm.
of how they want to pass on the baton, how they want to pass on the wealth, how they want the participation of the next generation in the business. Because is the next generation interested, or they just want to, be in a situation where they do a supervision and overall, control role, rather than
Mm.
running the operation. So I think there will be several such nuances which will come into play. So it's an interesting field by itself. I mean, Harsh, I mean, we can go on talking for it. I mean, since I've gone through several situations forever. But again, I think the dynamics, are changing. The good
Mm.
thing that I see now versus, maybe 25 years, there is much more open talk about it in the families, which is the good thing. So I think
Still a very awkward
the
conversation, I think. The minute you, uh, I think very few, how should I put it? I think most parents don't want to deal with it and they just leave it, right? And that is doing injustice to the kids coming later. I feel like that they're not taking responsibility what should happen when they're alive. This is just my personal view and nothing to do with M&A, but I've seen some families plan out and have conversations with their kids so that everyone knows what they're entitled to, and it removes any friction later on between the siblings. And what a gift to give, right?
yeah,
Because why would you want friction and them? Because as you grow old, everyone has their own families and their own needs,
yeah,
and
yeah,
everyone's not successful in the same way. So then money
yeah,
becomes a big issue, especially if there's big disparity between the siblings and the success they've achieved. So the parents honestly should take the baton and saying this is how it's going to be and it should be fair, etc. So I mean, how interesting. We started at a corporate level and how this makes sense and buying an asset versus how it plays out also at the personal level. And you've seen so many huge industrialists, big families, you know um, do this and do this probably smartly and better than guys who are more grounded or have a job, for instance. um, Tell me about private equity. I mean, private equity is another very different institution. Dealing with them must be extremely interesting and also again very different. How do you is your work when it comes to private equity, is the mindset different? Are the transactions different? Or is it still the same people aiming for the same goals? It's just approached differently.
no, I think it's a different ball game, if I have to put it.
Hmm.
Obviously, mindset is different. Mindset is more what will happen in 5 years versus, strategic who may look at 10, 15, 20 years. I think so, because the biggest thing that if one can realize is that in private equity, the people who are at the forefront of running a private equity are dealing with somebody else's money. They need
Correct.
to be extremely careful because it is not their own money. If
Correct.
I make on my money, if I make money or I lose money, it is my call. But I
Hmm.
can't do that on anybody else's money. So they are under extreme pressure, first and foremost, because they're dealing with somebody else's money. Now, they are looking at if you can approach any private equity deal and you help them to, make them understand what are the nuances from a tax perspective in particular, right? And we've had a very recent ruling, from the Supreme Court on the subject, as to what is substance and what is form. So if you can make them see those entire things, I think, private equity can, flourish in a very different way, which has just happened over the years. But you need to be quick on your toes. You need to be giving more pointed points of views. It's more yes no type of a situation with them, because they are wanting you to take the final calls, if quote unquote, on a tax
Hmm.
matter, for example. uh, Timing again, they are, because they feel that somebody else will clinch their deal, so they want to do it in a very quick way. And again, it's a 5 year, at best 7 year horizon. I've seen things happen also in 3 years. So once they've entered, I think they're more looking at how do they spruce up the value, because that is where they spend most of their time while doing the acquisition. What are the
Hmm.
areas, what are the bolt-ons they will be able to do, to build on the business. So I think that's a slightly different game than how a strategic would look at it, because strategic will have its own people get into it, and run it. In private equity, everybody is a financial person, with a financial background, right?
Hmm.
Because you primarily will have MBAs, and all of those colleagues who are there, and therefore they will run it as if they are running a organization for a shorter period, wherever they take majority control, or if they have minority control, they will partner with the promoter or the entrepreneur, to see how the growth of the business is achieved. But I think it's more about growth immediately once they have entered,
Hmm.
and then seeing how the value is created over a 3 5 year period, so that they can exit at maybe 3x 4x 2.5x, whatever that will be. I think that's,
What
I
do
think
you
the game is.
what do you find more interesting, the strategic involvement or the private equity involvement? One's very transactional. One is, I think, more built over generations.
I think it's both are relevant and both are important. I've dealt with both sides of clients, so I think each one brings its own level of requirement from a professional, right? Who's advising them. And I think the important thing is that speed is of essence when it is private equity. Whereas in a corporate, they would want to deep dive on several things. They would want to deep dive on several things, from an overall perspective. So I think
Let
it's important to understand that as we deal with different sets of clients from an overall perspective. But private equity, to my mind, has grown significantly over the last 2 decades in India,
Mhm.
and I think the way they've been able to create wealth for their set of investors, I think it's only going to grow.
Interesting. Let's ask some short questions. I've taken some notes
Yeah.
here as well. Buy side versus sell side. Is there a specific advantage on playing one side versus the other, or being in one team versus the other?
I think buy side generally is much better, because you have a wider canvas of helping your clients with,
Mhm.
from a professional perspective. I think that's much better. Sell side will be limited because the person is going to get out, so it's more about what is the tax that is going to be levied at times, and gets limited in from a tax perspective for sure.
Do LLMs and the GPTs help now because you have information on your fingertips? You can build your own models. The tax and the laws are constantly changing. Has it given an edge? Uh,
Not
AI and
really, not really.
no?
Not
I would
really.
assume it would. Like, would you not go and
Not on the
type out like,
tax,
okay, no?
not on
Okay.
the tax side. I'll tell you why. So we've had incidences in the past when people have used that, including some of the authorities, and it has cited judgments which were never existent.
I heard.
So, so I'm a little old school of thought in some of these things. So yes, you may want to take help of them, but unless there is a human loop in it, I think it's going to be dangerous. As a firm, also, I think we've taken that call that human loop is needed whenever we are using Copilot or anything of those natures.
Do you think the government changing tax rules hurts sentiment locally and foreign sentiment? Because,
See,
for
I think
example,
we
if you look at a Singapore, or if you look at, I'd assume even UAE, FII and other investors coming in know that nothing will change. Uh, whereas, is there a feeling that in India, every year when the budget comes out, there's some change in tax laws and that dissuades investors or scares them? Is that perception correct?
So I'll tell you that too used to be there, but I now we have the new act which is coming into play, from 1st April 26, right? It has simplified itself quite a bit. A lot of redundancies have been taken care of, in terms of not being there and all of that. So I feel that now we will see a more stable environment on the tax side. uh, Even of late, if you see, there has only been a progressive movement towards making it more beneficial to the taxpayers. I mean, whether you look at the individual tax or whether you look at the GST rate rationalizations, it has only proven better for the taxpayer. Even when you look at corporates, our overall corporate tax rate is 25%. I mean,
Hmm.
that's fairly good when it come to several of the countries. I mean, so I think the push to a steady tax rate, and a regime which is much more defined. We are taking one more steps in the next 2 3 years, which will mean that whatever is your PNL account will be your taxable income almost. So we're going towards that. That will ease a lot of the things. Today, from your profit and loss account to your taxable income, there is a huge calculation that goes into play.
Mm.
The government in this last budget has announced that they will rationalize that so that we can do away with a set of new forms that we today need to fill in, whether you call it the tax audit form or whatever form you want to call it. So I think
Mhm.
that rest, see, so they are going into rationalization, but the
Mhm.
rationalization is in the right direction, which will mean that, you reduce the things that, taxpayers have to do and therefore help from an overall compliance of the tax law. So
What's a
I'm
negotiation?
very hopeful.
That sounds very positive. I mean, I would love,
Yeah.
every time I see calls and saying it's time for tax, I look at my bank account. I'm like, okay, do I have the liquidity to pay off whatever, or is everything been invested? What's the critical 20% of work that produces 80% of the result in your M&A tax field? Because the answer is very different for corporate finance, right? For M&A tax, what would be this critical 20% if you look at the 80/20 principle?
I think the critical path will be, a certainty. So if, let's say, if I'm buying from a non-resident, do I need to do a withholding of the taxes, and in that, does that bring certainty? Or is it going to, again go through a loop of, litigation? I think that's the first one, that so people, anybody who's coming in is wanting to look at that certainty from an overall perspective, from a tax lens perspective. And I think that is very critical. The second is, especially in, in private equity deals, right? If they are invested, prior to April 17, a lot of the time goes in, what we call the indemnity negotiations, because they want to take the benefit of the tax treaties. And then, there is always that. So that's another area which takes maximum time in a deal in terms of what we want to achieve and where we will settle down to be able to do the deal. So that's the second area. And I think the third is, the type of points that I made. Should it be a share purchase deal? Should it be an asset deal? Is there a win-win for both buyer and seller? But that is not as often, but it does come into play. So at least we'll give it a thought and then maybe rule it out if that's not working. And overall, what happens is, as you make acquisitions, you know, there is a sort of a transition period, especially in carve out situations. And therefore, how do you deal with the transition period in the carve out situations? Because you might still need to fall back on the, transfer or company or the entity which was carrying on the business for, let's say, just as an example, ERP systems for some time, or to get to know the market, the dealer network and all of that. So those type of things do come into, all the procurement services. So those are the type of things that come into play when, especially in a carve out situation. So again, it is, I would say, fact specific, and maybe things differ in each situations, but this is where it will come into play.
And when you get stuck, because you're talking about, a lot of money, a lot of tax implications, a lot of uncertainty because of cross border, there's also international tax to consider.
Yes.
Is there a negotiation tactic or principle that's consistently worked for you when you get stuck?
So I would say definitely we plan it much in advance. As I said earlier, I would, if I'm advising a buyer, I would first think where are the seller's points that are going to come from,
Mm,
and you plan those in advance, and then you create your scenario building based on, the types of things that you are likely to hear from the seller, so that you go towards what you want to achieve as a buyer.
mm,
That's very important. I've had a situation where, you know I had to buy operating business in an indirect way through a holding company in India, and we negotiated very hard to say that, I will not be able to sell the holding company while you want to sell me the holding company. I won't be able to sell the holding company. So when I sell the operating entity, I will have a double layer of tax in the holding company. First is when, they sell the business, there will be a capital gains tax. And then when I need to repatriate the money outside, I'll have to pay a dividend tax. So I'm going
mm.
to reduce the price upfront, or you give me the operating company directly. And actually, we got that, leeway in terms of reduction of price for the holding company versus the price for the operating entity. So you start. I mean, I've always started building backwards. First, if an advisor, they want to come to me, they ask, I'm going to acquire this entity or this business. I said, okay, what are your things that you want to achieve? And then what is the buyer's way of, so I'll ask some very naive questions to the seller, get some answers around that so that we can build on our scenarios. And that has helped. So as I said, I think it's important to understand the other side also equally, and what they might be looking for.
At this point in your career, after doing so many such transactions, I'm sure when you ask these questions, you have a repository of the kind of deals that you've done. So you can actually kind of map out 100% of the possible scenarios. And when an answer comes, you're like, yeah, I've done this deal before. And this is probably a good solution here. Or maybe we can mix this solution with this solution and create a mix for this particular client. I'm sure that you can get
Yeah, yeah.
both.
The second one works much, many more times. Let me tell you
Anyway.
that. That's why I was laughing much more when you talk the second one rather than the first one, because some of them are rankling through my mind already.
Whether you like it or not, you are also selling. In fact, you're selling a lot because of clients and because the trust you've built. I mean, a lot of people look up to you and your team looks up to you, and people in the community, in the M&A community, will look up to you and ask, like, well, how do you take and build this relationship in the short term but make sure they stay like they have with you for 30 plus years? What leads to this trust? Is it just the work and the output and the advantage that you give? Is it your mannerism and your ability to actually connect at a personal level? What would you say to everyone who needs to build trust and sell themselves one way or the other?
So I'll again step back. I had six different bosses.
Mm-hmm.
Each one taught me maybe one or two traits.
Mm-hmm.
And so right from, as I said, technical to solution oriented, right? Second, client relationships and how you build that, personal this thing. So today also, If I have client whom I'm on LinkedIn, I'll wish them a happy birthday, even if I've not spoken to them for a few days or maybe few weeks, whatever it is.
Hmm.
It's that small gestures. My longest client, I've never had a dinner or a drink with them uh, till date. 25 years, not a single dinner, not a single drink. I would at best had a cup of tea in their offices or outside, but every time, have something for them to talk and discuss. So I think if you put yourself in their shoes and think like them, that I think starts changing the game for you as a professional.
Hmm.
How easily and quickly are you able to do that? It's not an easy one, but how easily and quickly you are able to do that is the thing that the clients will remember. So today, let's say if I have done a deal 10 years back, but there is a decision today that comes which can, impact. So I'll write a small message. This decision has come. We had done this deal. I know it's too old now, but I thought I'll just, let you know that such a decision has come. Because if that person is thinking of a similar deal today, he will rethink it in light of this. I mean, that's my only purpose of, sending that message. Nothing is going to happen to a 12-year-old deal or a 14-year-old deal because you can't go back and open that much. But I'm just saying these are the ways that you create your relationship, build it brick by brick, and therefore have yourself, as part of them. I mean, I've had one industrialist come to my global boss when I was in EY and I'd taken him to meet the industrialist. So my boss was giving, introduction of all the team members. The India boss was giving introduction of all the team members. And then last I was the youngest on the lot. So he came to me and, the industrialist said, no, no, we know him. He is our man in your organization. And I like that. And I can't forget that because that's the best credit that anybody can give you, right? We are all professionals. We live on credits. And I can never forget that credit. And
That's amazing.
my global
Mm.
boss, when we went out of the meeting and came out of the building, he says, "Man, you have built it." You know, that's the word he used because he also got a little, awe of that situation. And I could not blush. I had to have a poker face. I could not, I just had a small smile because, you don't know how to react when something suddenly like this, such a big credit comes your way. You suddenly start saying, "Arey
Well,
boss, kya ho gaya?"
the fact that you remember it, left a lasting impression, obviously, and
Obviously,
uh, yeah,
obviously.
and but you have a Rolodex that you manage. I mean, so from if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is, it's the small things which count. Remembering their birthday, telling them that there's something new which might benefit them because of previous work that you've done. So you're not trying to go out of your way to, drink or have meals with them, but you're just trying to offer value and remind them that you're still there.
That's
And
it.
if they ever need you, then they know to reach you. Got it.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you say you're an amalgamation of, things that you've picked up from leaders, and on the way, while learning voraciously through others, also your own experiences adds to this lattice work that makes up your leadership style. How do you define success? I mean, what would you say you're successful already?
See, I tell you, if the moment I feel I'm successful, I will not be on my toes. Let me put it that way. Because, success breeds into your mind and then it makes you a little complacent. I would put success as something, do the right things often enough and long enough. And that's the tagline that I have. Do the right things often enough and long enough. Uh, and I think everything else will fall in place. Why do you need to run after success or why do you need to be successful? I mean, I always believe that because I have seen, and again, I'm again cricket buff, right? And
Hmm.
I'll give you one example. Again, I've learned a lot from the sport, okay, and I've applied that in my, as a professional quite a bit, and I give a lot of such examples to my colleagues. When I was growing up in my career, professional career, that's when Tendulkar and Kambli started playing, and Kambli was more successful at that time as a cricketer than cricketing. But ultimately it went to the head. and then you've seen whose career is where. So that's also stayed with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had a boss in his Gujarati. I'll try and talk this in Gujarati. He said, if somebody praises, or let me put it in English only. If somebody praises you, you know, don't go on the top of the tree. And if
Mm-hmm.
somebody pulls you down, don't feel that you are beneath the earth. Be always on the earth, whichever be the situation. So I think some of these things have remained,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm a quick observer. Frankly, I can tell you that's a God gift. So I try to just keep those things around me. Um, am I able to do it all the time? The answer is no. Let me be very clear about it. But I try to do the smaller things, right? So till at least 2017, or about, I used to keep a book of what I need to achieve in the next 3 months and what I have achieved in the last 3 months. Just trying to see how I can grow in my career. What is the next step I want to take, including small things like, do I need to write an article to get myself known to the market,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, those type of things. And then I would measure every 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
and I will not keep. I started with a very long list of 20 items and I failed miserably. I
Mm-hmm.
curtailed it to 3 items for the next 3 months, because you have to do work also and you have to do this also, right? And that's how I slowly built every this thing. And then you feel okay, you are achieving things in a professional setup, in a professional way. Yes, you are doing your client work, which is why we are surviving today. And then you are also wanting to build your own. So I think it's important for any new guy, you said, to do is, a, if I were to start my career today, right, and cull out the mistakes that I have done,
Mm-hmm.
start creating your own point of view on a matter, because point of views do matter, and are very important from a client perspective, because the moment you have a point of view, you are sticking your neck out. And I think there are very few professionals who stick their neck out, is what I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And you may be right in your point of view, you may be wrong ultimately in your point of view, but you need to have a rational for your point of view. So if I'm taking a tax position, I need to have a rational why I'm taking that tax position, and I need to be able to explain with conviction. So that's the first. Second, start getting into nuances. I think we as tax professionals need to know the nuances. I can't be at the 30,000 feet and give advice. I need to be at the 2,000, maybe 1,000 feet, to be able to give the right advice. Because if I don't study the facts, so therefore every situation and every fact is very different for us. And we are learning every day. Like I'm currently also learning. When I go for client meetings, there will be two new things that will come up, and you're struggling, you're catching your hair, and you're trying to figure a solution for that, again, with the clients, obviously. So that's how things get evolved, and then the client feels, okay, but this guy is also thinking. So if some solution has not come and suddenly you find a solution, you will tell the client, "Okay, I'm thinking on these lines, do you think it will work from your organization perspective?" And that, well, we may have agreed to meet 4 days later, but if I put this 1.5, 2 days later in his mind, that guy feels that I'm thinking about him all the time, 24/7.
Interesting.
Those are the things which try and bring you into a different. So you don't need to do things which everybody is doing. You need to do things a little more than, a little different than what everybody is doing. That's
So you're
how
also managing perception in a way. You don't have to tell him, but you want him to know that you're working on your work, on his work, because
uh,
at the end of the day, if he doesn't
I
hear
I
from
don't
you,
want to I don't want to call it a perception management with a client, because with a client I'm more easy getting the solution, because it also
right?
helps me. Let's say if I had to go in 4 days, in my example, 4 days, and when we were to meet and tell him that same solution, he says no, but mere organization mein nahi chalega.
Mm.
Then I'll fall flat. If he tells me at that time 2 days,
Got it.
then I start thinking something different, right? So I'm saving his time, I'm saving my time.
At your times. So, but you're still looking at from the lens of you got to find a solution. So better
Yeah,
to,
yeah. So I
and every
think
time you hit a
that's the
milestone, you're trying to say, hey, this is where I'm headed.
yeah.
And he can stop you there versus you having done all the work and realizing it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And
So
taking him
it's
along
a
the journey.
yes, it's a double this thing. But again, you're looking at it from a solution, then a perception perspective. The other thing that I have over the years, which I tell my juniors is, you know, don't go on a vacation when there is a break period. So let's say your Christmas vacations, your Diwali vacations. Invariably in my career, the best of the deals have come at that time. And since there was nobody else, I got to do them. Okay. You would rather see when you don't have kids, when you don't
Yeah,
have kids who are in school, you can go on a
yeah,
vacation anytime. You don't need to go
yeah,
in the normal vacation period,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
I've got the best of my deals either in a Christmas vacation or on a Diwali, vacation. When people are not around, I'll take those 3 4 days of Diwali, but uske aju baju, you are there. You got the best
Still,
of the deals. Uh,
still that
uh,
works.
See, now it's a slightly different. I go and get the deals myself, so it is a mixed
Sure.
bag. I'm talking of my younger days. So, if somebody is entering the field, is three,
Yeah.
5 years into the field, this is the best time because you don't have kids, you don't have other issues, it's okay. I tell the other way around also to them, it's costly to go on a break at that time than to go in an off season. So I try and explain it in that way to them, my office colleagues, or my younger team members. But these are some of the things, that has helped me in terms of trying to be different than what a usual person would do.
So you focused a lot, Amrish, on the journey, versus any kind of destination as well. I feel like, I have this reminder. They keep on changing on my calendar at the end of the day. So did you give it your all? And and if it's a yes, then at least by the end of the day when I'm tired, I can just relax and say I could have done anything. At least today I did what I could do to break it up. Um, but health, wealth, relationship, purpose. If you had to rate these, rank them from the most important to the least important, how would you?
So obviously health will be first.
Mhm.
I mean, because unless there is health, you can't do any of the other. I'm very clear on that piece. Relationship is equally important, and God has been kind on the well side, so I don't have any complaints. Uh, uh, so if I were to put health as the first, relationships, is very important because, at the end of the day, they make you what you are. If you did not have the relationships, I don't think you'll be a person that you are. And then wealth is, I think, a by factor is a as I see it.
And purpose, where does purpose fit in?
So let me put it this way. I mean, now at this age, I think about purpose much more than what I used to think maybe 30 years back. Because,
Hmm.
in those days, and I see the younger kids, I think they have a much better sense of purpose than I was when I was their age, to be honest. And therefore, that's also started sinking in because you need to, have something that you work for. Uh, and it's not about you, right, as an individual or you as a family, in that sense, right? So that's slightly sinking in now. I think the purpose till now, if I have to put it, has been what is the best from a client perspective. That was the purpose. That was the sole motivation driver and all of that. But I think I've over the period and especially now realized that the purpose needs to be much more broader. It needs to be much more encompassing than having it in this narrow focus of just client solution oriented approach and all of that. But yeah, I mean, we've grown in an era where that was more important, so that's how it has been.
Is there a
So I think it
retirement
is it
age?
is gaining it is gaining importance, I mean, say from a purpose perspective, especially with I have 5 years to go for my retirement, so
I was just going
it
to
will
ask
gain
you,
much more.
is there a retirement age in deal making? Like, can you not continue to work till whatever age?
No, no,
Why
so what
stop?
happens
I
is,
mean,
yeah, yeah,
why stop when
no,
you're
no.
so good at what you do? You've done this all your life. In another 5 years, you would have been on the in the field for 42 years. Um, why ever stop? I mean, because the little observation that I have had is once you stop doing what you've always done and what's really driven you, suddenly you kind of lose your sense of balance and you don't know what to do with your time, and the time is quite a bit. And people like a Buffett, like I admire Buffett among other, they tap dance to work till the late 90s. They never stop working till today. They get up, they go to their office, they do their work, they come back, and that habit and rituals kind of drilled into them and they love it so much. Do you not see yourself doing
Yeah.
something similar?
Yeah. So let me put it slightly differently, right? I want to do other things also. I'm, which I am unable to do. For example,
Hmm.
social causes is what attracts me quite a bit. I'm today only doing it through finance, but I'm not devoting time because I don't have the time.
Hmm.
That's something which I think will get larger as I move on, next 5 years. So that's where I want to spend the time. Outside of that, whatever time will be available, I mean, I'm not going to go on a daily basis to search for, this thing. I'll keep on meeting my clients and my relationships, generally. But I want to do other things also, which I have not been able to do, in that sense. And then, as the family will grow, there'll be grandkids and, all of that. So I've seen a lot of stuff, that people try and balance out different things in life at that stage. See, what happens is, you know, at least from a big four perspective, there will be a definite age when you need to retire, which, as I said, is 5 years for me. Thereafter, obviously, first few months I want to travel a lot. So maybe a year or so, I'll try and clear out my bucket list of things that I need to do, and
Hmm.
then see how life is there. And then obviously, there's the other purpose, as I said, social causes. That's something that I'm very keen on.
Last few questions. If there was a profession that, other than your own, what would it have been, or what would you have liked to work in? If you
I
could,
would like to have been a cricketer. I mean,
yeah, I was
without
gonna
doubt.
say.
The only thing I think is, I mean, obviously it would have required a very different level of effort and hard work, because it's more about the body than the mind, uh,
That's not
in this
true. I
profession.
would I would say that's not true. I think cricket
No,
and any sport is as much the mind as the body. I was
no, I'll
brilliant.
come to.
Yeah, okay, because I was
What
like,
I
no,
said
no, it's
here.
not.
No, I agree with you. I agree, but
Yeah.
I'm saying the body is more than in the mind, because what happens is your reflexes and your strength and all is the body. Your mind
Mm,
will work better if your strength is there. In a professional career that I am in, your mind needs to be razor sharp. Even if your body is a little here and there, it works. Whereas in a cricket field, आज मेरा
mm,
पैर दुख रहा है तो I can't enter the field. Whereas here,
mm.
even if my leg is paining, I can still do my work. So that's
Sure.
the effort in this. So but I would have, because again, I like to do only things which I'm passionate about. So I can't think of anything else than a
Anything
cricketer.
else? Is there anything you haven't achieved personally or professionally that you would have liked to so far?
Nothing of that sort. See, I've been M&A tax leader in two big fours. I'm the Asia Pacific M&A tax leader. You can always say that I could have become the leader of the organization. But I
Mhm.
think you have to know your strengths and your weaknesses, right? And if you play within that, again, any cricketer does that, right? Or any sports person does that. If you
Mhm.
play within your strengths and weaknesses, then I don't have any regrets in terms of what I have not achieved, or or what others believe I have achieved. Let me put it this way.
Any specific habit or routine which has made a significant difference in your success? Is there anything you do on a daily basis which primes you for the day and makes sure that you have a good day?
So as I said, health to me is key. So I need to have my morning walks or my yoga. That's the key, because that starts the day in the nice way. Obviously, when you're traveling, it becomes a little challenging. But I've kept this that if you can do it 5 days a week, including weekends, I think you're pretty much okay with the rhythm of it. I mean, it's more the rhythm rather than whether I've done 5 days or not 5 days and all of that. I think again, I do spend time reading on a daily basis, and it's not about the newspapers and all of that, but I always read something which is interesting to understand. In my next deal, can something of this work or not work? And that I do very regularly on a weekly basis. I mean, I still read all my text magazines. I read something outside of the text magazine. So that's an important element, for me. Uh, and it's part of me. So I may not be able to do daily, but I do weekly definitely.
Amrish, I'll stop here. It's been a joy talking to you. Thank you for sharing your story. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did.